And I'm a 22-year-old university student from Sydney, Australia. The reason I'm making this video is to raise awareness about the upcoming collapse of the financial system and reveal to the public the outright corruption endemic throughout the financial services industry. More specifically, I want to raise awareness about bail-in legislation. Bail-in legislation is the legislation that enables bankers to confiscate your life savings next time there's a market collapse. And so there isn't any mainstream reporting on bail-in legislation. They've tried to censor it, and so I did some of my own investigating and found out the truth behind bail-in. So on the 5th and 6th of April, I attended the Australian Financial Review's Banking and Wealth Services Summit. Tickets for this event were $5,000 each, so only the top of the banking industry attended. What was significant at this event was that the key speakers noted that Australia will be adopting bail-in legislation. So bail-in legislation is the legislation that enables bankers to seize the equity of their creditors next time there's a market crash. This is part of the larger global Basel IV agenda being pushed by the Bank of International Settlements and the Financial Stability Board. Both of these are run out of Basel, Switzerland. The end goal of the Bank of International Settlements is a single world financial system, a one world currency, ruled by a one world bureaucracy, and controlled with a one world control system. And so the purpose of this video is to wake enough people up to the Bank of International Settlements' real agenda and just say, hey, nah, we're going to stop it this time. And so I'll tell you what happened on the first day of the conference, and then I'll show you what happened on day 2 of the conference. The first significant speaker of the day was Bill Cohen. Bill Cohen was the General Secretary of the Basel's Committee of Banking Supervision out of Basel, Switzerland, and he's basically a henchman for the Bank of International Settlements. Within 30 seconds he said, a financial crisis, not if, but when. And he basically declared that he was ready, the Bank of International Settlements was ready to bring in the new Basel IV structural reforms, and he talked this metaphor about the bridge to bring us over into this new system. The second speaker was APRA Chairman Wayne Byers, who was acting as a representative of the Australian government. He, within 30 seconds, said, when adversity comes, it's not if, it will come. He then said that APRA was supportive of the reforms put forth by the Basel's Committee and would be adopting the recovery resolution powers put forth by the Financial Stability Board. It was due to the reforms in the Financial Systems Inquiry that APRA can now apply bail-in legislation in the event of a systemic crash. So APRA has indicated that Australia will be adopting the regulatory reforms of the Swiss banks. So this is really, really significant. The third significant speaker was NAB Chairman Ken Henry. Now Ken Henry is the epitome of the revolving door between big business and government. He was actually the Secretary of Treasury from 2001 to 2011 through the financial crash, and now he's now chairman of NAB, so he's making a fortune off the financials. Anyway, he said that the shadow of the 2008 GFC still looms. He also said that the new total loss absorbing capacity bonds aren't enough to protect governments from using taxpayers to protect the banks. Basically, he's saying in the next crisis, the measures we have currently aren't enough to protect the taxpayer. The fourth significant speaker was Kevin Nixon, who is the head of regulatory strategy for Asia Pacific at Deloitte, which is a massive business consultancy firm. He basically said we need to finalize these policies by the end of the year before the next crisis hits. By adopting the regulatory measures put forth by the Basel's Committee, and adopting the regulations put forth by the Swiss banks, with the cooperation of APRA and Treasury, we can focus on how the banks can survive the next crash. And so basically, with the combination of these 4 speakers, the Bank of International Settlements' real agenda is revealed. First, Bill Cohen said, hey, we created the international framework. So the Swiss banks have the new framework. Second, APRA chairman said the Australian government is willing to adopt this new framework. Third, Ken Henry said, hey, next time there's a financial crash, we are going to need helicopter money next time there's a market crash to save the banks, along with the extra reforms. And then fourth, Kevin Nixon said, hey guys, well, we'll finalize all these policies by the end of the year and we'll create it and have the whole system ready to go. And it's been given the green light and it's absolutely insane. So I filmed the conference on day 2 just to get some evidence to you guys that this is actually happening. So this is day 2 of the conference. If this doesn't wake enough people up, God knows what the hell will. But we got to stop these guys for sure.
Okay, I'm here at the Banking and Wealth Services Conference. I've got these flyers we're going to give out. Hopefully people can understand what the bail-ins are and what the Financial Stability Board actually is really doing. So, here goes now.
One world currency is real and it is coming. They are building it currently. Ask him for sight and the power to learn. Can't be scared now to...
I'm here at the Banking and Wealth Summit here in Sydney. Tickets for this event are like $5,000. There's lots of powerful banking people here. I'll just give you a tour around.
They wonder why I have no fear, 'cause I know why I'm here. Let's go. The ending of the world is near, and I see it so clear, yes.
Are working on developing a major report to be released this June that will explore a number of blockchain use cases, both in terms of their potential values, with the complexity around stakeholder, the discussion that we had in Davos this year with some very senior names in financial services.
A little bit more detail about two particular ways that ASIC is responding, as I said, one through our Innovation Hub and two, our work on cyber resilience. So at last year's ASIC Annual Forum,
This summit has some of the most powerful people in Sydney's banking community, even Australia's banking system. Have you heard of the Financial Stability Board before?
Financial Stability Board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From
the FSB.
The FSB from
Yeah.
Are you aware of the new bail-in legislation powers?
Sort of.
Have you heard about the Financial Stability Board at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
The
Not much.
The FSB.
Yeah.
Have you heard bail-in before?
Yeah, a little bit. Yep.
So,
Bail-in is when, no, I know what it is. It means that certain investors, certain customers of the bank or holders of bonds or whatever,
yeah.
They will forego their investment, I think, in order to support the bank.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's basically the banks are able to seize the equity of their creditors.
It's a bit of a monopoly, an Armageddon type situation, isn't it?
It is 100% because it's the Bank of International Settlements really wants to control the world. Like they want a one world currency. They want to be able to have complete control over it, and then they want it to be cashless, so they can continue doing things like negative interest rates. So you can't pull your money out of the bank if it's cashless. You can't do that. And then the governments will also support it because they can tax people. And so if everything's digitalized, you can't avoid tax. So it's definitely, we're having two wars. We've got the war with the bail-ins, and then we also got the war on cash. And so they're trying to outlaw cash and stick us on this digitalized society. The Economic Forum in Davos, they're major promoters of the cashless society. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about that. I don't know, it'd be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah. So Google and Facebook were talking yesterday with the idea of a world without cash.
Yeah.
So it's going to be for the benefit of the super hyper elite Bank of International Settlements, the oligarchs, who are basically the same people who caused the crash are the ones who are going to be benefiting from the crash. So it's a crime. And so I think it might be the idea of the cashless society.
It does make it easier to do that. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
What they can still do is provide a government guarantee, but as you just point out, that's okay as a confidence booster, but if it's actually required to cash in, it could be problematic.
I only had one non-positive reaction the entire conference. This was when I asked the CEO of a bank if he knew what would happen to his depositors' funds next time there was a market crash. This is the CEO of My State Limited from Tasmania.
Hey man, how are you? My name's Sam. Sorry, mate. Nice to meet you, mate. Have you heard of the Financial Stability Board before? Are you aware of the new bail-in resolution powers?
No interest in what you mislead.
But?
I've got no interest.
No worries, mate.
So why did he have no interest in talking what I wanted to talk about? It's because he's part of the cabal that's conspiring to steal your savings next time there's a market crash. He's part of the secret society conspiring. He's sworn to secrecy. And so anytime someone tries to expose it, they just brush it aside. So I was asking a lot of questions and trying to figure a lot of stuff out. And this was another guy that started trying to figure out how much I knew about secret societies.
This sounds like it's heading towards a conspiracy.
Oh, hey, bankers are the biggest crooks there are. So they're next. financial.
Run by the Illuminati, or?
Well, a lot of the top levels of the bank are actually part of secret societies and things like that. So like,
Right.
yeah, well, like Freemasons, like a lot of banking officials and things like that. A lot of high government officials are Freemasons. And
Can you name any one of the?
I specifically can't know. But
Okay.
so,
Well, as Voltaire said, I may not agree with your point of view, but I defend your right to present it.
huzzah, thank you.
Okay.
$100 that dude was part of a secret society.
They say I act mad at the station with a black bag. Coppers watching me like insurgency in Baghdad. Fight back, yeah, I'm ready to get involved. If you're on it, then I'm on it. Pass the Molotov and stroll to the front, then throw. Hear the sweet.
So Ken Henry, who is the current chairman of NAB, is actually calling for bailout money. He said multiple times that the total loss absorbing capacity bonds aren't going to be enough to protect taxpayers from a bailout. So recently on June 10th, NAB actually released a guide called A Guide to Helicopter Money, where they're basically stating the positives of bailouts. And so basically, I think Ken Henry will use his ex-connections over with the Treasury to ensure this legislation goes through. And also, it's the decision ultimately lies with APRA Chairman Wayne Byers.
Okay, well, see, Ken Henry's a member of NAB now, is chairman of NAB, so he's not associated with Treasury anymore. But Wayne Byers is, he's head of APRA, so he clearly has a role to play in that decision.
yeah.
Then I discovered the person I had to talk to was Kevin Nixon. Kevin Nixon is the head of regulatory strategy at Deloitte and was basically the organizer of the conference getting Bill Cohen out from Basel, Switzerland. By finding out Kevin Nixon's background, this was when I realized that the whole conference was just an insider's club. And so I had to really dig deep and ask Kevin Nixon, the heart, what is bailing legislation? And so,
have you heard of the Financial Stability Board at all?
Yes, of course, the FSB,
So,
absolutely.
Were you surprised yesterday they announced that they support the Basel's committee for bail-in resolution powers?
Yeah.
So you've heard of the bail-in resolution powers and things. Well, I'm actually spreading awareness about the bail-ins, just telling people.
Well, I tell you what, the fella that really knows all about this and will be very cluey for you is Kevin Nixon. He used to be the chair of the IIF. He was responsible, the International Institution of Finance out of Washington, D.C. He now heads our Regulatory Strategy Center. So he'll be very helpful in what everything is doing. And he was responsible for getting Bill Cohen out here from Basel.
Really, yeah.
And Wayne Byers, as you know, also used to be the General Secretary of the Banking Securities for Basel, out of Basel.
No way.
Yeah. So those guys know each other very well.
So it's all an inside club.
No, not really. Not really. I think they're very thoughtful about how things are working. I can certainly happily introduce you to Kevin.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay, let me just come back. You just hang here for a minute. I'll just try that. Okay.
Thank you. Kevin, hi.
Sorry.
No, my name's
Sam.
My name's Sam Henson. Yeah, I'm a student. One of the biggest regulations I've seen this year is the bail-in legislation. So like the ability for banks to seize the equity of their creditors. So you think bail them out again? There's no solution.
Well, there's no appetite for it. So ending too big to fail has become a mantra of many people who went through the crisis. They're saying we're not going to do that again. And the whole idea is if you stuff up, then your shareholders lose money and your creditors lose money just like any other company. And it's up to your shareholders and creditors to give you the pressure to not take the risky bets. And if you as a shareholder and creditor take those risky bets, you lose. And that's what bail-in's all about. The creditors lose money, not the taxpayer. And so the industry will point Basel for because they're saying you're changing the rules of the game. Whatever number you give it, there will be fundamental policy decided and locked in this year at the global level. APRA will then implement it. So Wayne Byers said 2016 is the global year, 2017 is the year we work out how we apply it in Australia, 2018 is the year we bring it in Australia. Exactly. But even as soon as the ink is dry, January, February next year, they'll start. They're already doing it. They've already got this coherence and calibration working group that's already looking at how does this all hang together. How does it all work?
Next time there's a financial crash, because I think the next one's going to be, it's so impossibly large that they're just going to have to, I think they'll bail in the banks and then they'll change the whole financial system because it'd be the end of the financial system. I think
exactly. So that's why they bailed them out. Now what they're doing is they're building this bail-in framework so that the next time this happens, they can go to the creditors and say, we told you you were going to lose money, here it is. But they're going to do it as opposed to a normal creditor workout of a normal bankrupt company. Go through the courts. Lehman Brothers, they're still working out how many cents in the dollar you get. They haven't finalised that yet. But a bank you can't. A bank you have to shut it on a Friday, open it on a Monday. So the idea of a bail-in is they just walk over to a creditor and say, you're now getting 50 cents in the dollar. There's no court case. There's no protracted argument. There's no disposition of the assets. You just walk over and say, you've now got 50 cents in the dollar. Let's all start again on Monday. And which is a fundamental difference between what happens with a normal company and what's going to happen with the bank.
Okay. I think it's quite unfair though, because like the average taxpayer, which is the average depositor, is a creditor. Like they're completely.
So in Australia we have depositor preference. We also now have the financial claims scheme to protect depositors. So depositors actually come out better, just as okay out of this, unless you're in New Zealand. In New Zealand, they take depositors' money away.
Okay.
The TLAC bonds have the discretion of the regulator to walk in and say, those bonds you bought, they're not worth what you thought they were. Let's all get over it and move on.
So there you have it, evidence that bail-in is real and that these international bankers are conspiring to confiscate your savings next time there's a market crash, which incidentally they also engineered. If you want some more evidence, this is the April 6th financial review that was released on the second day of the conference. Down here, the bottom paragraph. Regulators would have no option but to call on taxpayers to guarantee the banks in a future financial crisis. Wayne Byers vowed to push ahead with policies designed to prevent bank bailouts. Those policies are bank bail-in policies. Dr. Henry said this would not prevent governments from needing to use their balance sheets in a crisis to protect the banks. So what he's saying is not only will they require bank bail-ins, but also they're going to require bank bail-outs and helicopter money to protect the banks. It's absolutely criminal, it's an absolute scam, it's an absolute insider's club, insider trading, whatever you want to call it. It's collusion at the highest level and corruption within the Australian government and financial system. So we need real reform and real change. Luckily, there are two sets of legislation that can actually solve our problems. The first is Glass-Steagall legislation. Glass-Steagall legislation has actually existed through history and was used after the Great Depression to tie down the banks in America and across the world. What Glass-Steagall does is it separates banks into either retail or investment banks. So retail banks are responsible for savings and home loans, while investment banks are responsible for gamblings and derivatives and credit default swaps and gambling in the stock market. So what it does is that it still allows banks to gamble in the stock market. It just says, hey, you can't use our savings to do so. So it's a separation of the banking system. The second piece of legislation is the National Bank Drafting Bill. So what it does is basically it drafts a National Australia Bank and provides a replacement for the private corporation that is the Reserve Bank of Australia. When the Australian government has its own ability to print its own currency without the need for a usurious debt system, that's when we can achieve national sovereignty. And so I won't be happy until Philip Lowe's at the line of Centrelink, because we really need to reform the private corporation that is the Reserve Bank of Australia. So after the conference I was feeling so good that I went by the RBA to tell them how I really felt.
I'm like V with a vendetta, black beretta, a bloodstained sweater, sending out another revolutionary chain letter over the web. Can you notice the top of my head in the crowd where the flag's black and red? If there's a class war starting, I'll start my own Lockheed Martin. Stones departing the planet's surface when I'm ready. Entering the belly of the beast, this ain't gonna make the telly. Another non-televised revolutionary with a blackberry on my head, down a blackberry in my hand to communicate with comrades in other lands. We unite for the same cause, fighting the same wars, defying the.
So hopefully you enjoyed this video and hopefully it educated enough people to the real dangers of bail-in legislation. But bail-in legislation is not just an Australian issue, it's a global issue. The Financial Stability Board has been visiting governments and central banks all over the world passing bail-in legislation. So bail-in legislation is in place in America, in Europe, in England, in Asia, all over the world. So it's up to those of us who see the real dangers of bail-in legislation. We have a responsibility to start generating the large-scale opposition required to resist these psychopathic globalist policies. By advocating for Glass-Steagall and establishing a national bank and eventually closing down the private corporation that is the Reserve Bank of Australia, what we are doing is sending a message to the Bank of International Settlements that we do not support your plan for a one world currency, and we will stop your plans for a one world dictatorship. So hopefully more people are inspired by this video and get involved in the struggle to end the control of the user central banking cabal. So peace out.
Same laws against the same system, and we share the same wisdom, the knowledge of the constant corruption, plus a dream of society that functions but can't be achieved without pushing the limits, the walls that